Isn't this a pretty thing? I guess I've had lots of I have lots of pens I would call my favorites. This is probably, if I had to make a hard choice and cut my collection down to say a couple pens, this would be in it. This would be one of the ones I would keep. It's the Pilot E95S, and it's a really lovely design. I know I go on about TWSBI and Lamy all the time, but really, Pilot makes some of the nicest fountain pens out there. I haven't really found a Pilot that I don't like. I don't have a lot of Pilots, but I have a couple, and this is probably my favorite at the moment. And if I have another one that becomes my favorite, I will let you know. I should do a Pilot roundup someday, maybe in a few months. Anyway, so it's the Pilot E95S. And it's an interesting pen in that it harks back to designs from the 1960s. Pilot, Sailor, Platinum, at that time, and a few other brands from Japan all had pens very similar to this in design, a large cap, a small barrel body, and they were designed as pocket pens or purse pens, designed to be small, but with one interesting feature: when you uncap it, you post the pen, and it becomes actually a fairly large size pen. It's a nice. Actually, it's a big pen, really, in some cases. Uh, you know, the first thing that really catches your eye when you unpost the pen is just how great a nib it has. It's a beautiful. I tend to think of this as an inlaid nib or a semi-hooded nib, or as someone told me one time, it looks like a fingernail. So it's a fingernail inlay nib, so to speak. We'll call it that. It has a 14 karat gold nib. This one is fine. It says 14K 585 Pilot, and then it says 5 Japan, and then there's another little number here. I can't remember what it is or what it stands for. On the barrel, you see the E, so it's a E95S. I've left the label on mine. Most people tend to. Eventually, that'll probably wear off. It's already starting to show some wear, and I'm not too concerned about that. But when I have a pen with a label, I tend to leave it on if it's part of the design. There's sort of a foil gold cap band here. It's not really a cap band as such, but it most looks like a foil that's been placed on it. It has a nice stiff clip, fairly plain finial, and fairly plain, actually a plain barrel end. Yeah, one of the one of the things I like about it, I'm a person who prefers my pens to be pull caps rather than screw caps. When you pull it, there's a nice feeling, almost like a vacuum seal to it. So when it pulls off, it has this nice pop feel to it. Yeah. So now, one thing I would say, it does have. Usually, this is not inked at the moment. I'm going to ink it up, and I usually keep the same ink in it all the time. And one thing I do have to say is it does have, a rather small little converter in it. And when you move the piston back and forth, you can't actually see how much ink will be in the converter. You could take it out and maybe eyedrop, use a syringe to fill the converter to get a full converter fill. But I tend to just, dunk it in and fill it up and write with it until it runs out and then refill it. I gave it a nice bath earlier today, and what I always put in it is one of my favorite inks, and that's the Diamine Blood Orange. What I really like about this bottle is the shape. It's the 150th anniversary ink, there's several inks in this line, and when you get them together, you can sort of put them side by side, and they'll form a circle when you have all the inks that they have, which is kind of a cool little idea. Maybe someday I should try to get them all. Now, as I said, you really can't tell how much ink goes into it, so I tend to give myself a couple turns, you know, up and down, up and down, up and down. Let it fill up. Now, one thing I've noticed is red inks tend to form barnacles, but I've had really great luck with this one. It doesn't seem to do it on any of my pens. And what I mean is by barnacles is sometimes certain inks, they'll sort of, if you haven't used it for a little while, the ink will sort of pile up on the nib and sort of form little crustaceans that you can, they're not harming anything, but they do slow down ink flow, so you just wash them off. But I've had great luck with blood orange. It doesn't seem to do it on any of my pens. I tended to write with this color all the time, so maybe, but if I left it for a long time, it might happen. I have noticed Private Reserve Orange Crush actually forming barnacles on a couple of my pens. And yeah, so that's one thing to always be aware of with red inks, and some other inks too. But I haven't had a problem with this. Another one I have is Ancient Copper, very similar color, and I have no problem with that either. Maybe it's because I use my pens all the time. Anyway, so it has a beautiful fine nib. Now, very smooth. Quick. Now, I don't know if you can hear that. There is, it's a Japanese fine. So that means it's, you know, compared to, say, a Western fine, this would be considered an extra fine. If you were to say line it up against a lamy or a pelican or something like that, Japanese fines tend to be quite a bit finer. I wouldn't say this is a soft nib as such, and it doesn't have any real line variation, and you wouldn't want to push this nib. An inlaid nib, you know, it's not going to give you like flecks of any kind, so don't go pushing it. But it is a nice writer, and even though it's smooth, there is a bit of feedback, and I like that. And you can also hear it when you're writing on the paper, which I also like. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of ASMR going on with the nib, and you can, you know, you can hear it. And I would say it's not necessarily an overly wet writer, but that's fairly wet right there. Could be the ink too. And this is my favorite combination with this pen because it's a burgundy barrel. You know, I tend to try to match up inks with my pens, and so yes, this is the Pilot E95S. It harkens back to the Pilot Elite of the 60s. Actually, it's a very similar design. I don't have a vintage Elite, but someday I will get one just to see how they compare. I've heard good things about them. And anyway, I hope you're having a great day. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new around here, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. And I'll be doing, in the next little while, I might do some more Pilot reviews. I have a Pilot on the way that I'm really looking forward to, but it's taking a little time to get here. So when it comes, I'll do an unboxing, and then maybe I'll do a comparison with all my Pilots. I have a couple of nice vintage ones that I haven't reviewed yet, and I'll do that someday too. So anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and thank you for watching. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.